What's up, everybody? Welcome to NWA Nurses with Attitude. Leanne and I want to throw a quick shout out to the listeners. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate your support episode after episode, and we hope you guys enjoy this content as much as we love making it. If you guys want, go check us out on our social, Nurses with Attitude on Instagram. That's where you'll find all the updates you need, and also shoot us a message if you want. Enjoy the episode, guys.
Good morning.
Hello.
Oh, we got a good one today.
Oh, yeah, we do. Hey, when do we have a bad one?
Well, I guess
I think they're all golden.
maybe we're a little biased.
I
I don't think we have any
Maybe
we don't have any housekeeping today. No exciting news to share for once.
No, just literal housekeeping, Saturday,
Yeah.
getting
Yep,
that stuff
Saturday.
done.
Good old Saturday morning record.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Joe, what are we
yeah.
talking about? What are we talking about today?
So we thought, because we dived into essential oils, that kind of like spectrum of healthcare, that we go to kind of the same thing, but actual with like pharmaceuticals. And we're going to be talking about off-label uses of medications that are used for weight loss. And there's a ton of them out there, guys. A ton of them. And we're just going to go over our thoughts. Like, what do we think about them? Are they ethical to be prescribed? Are they effective? And the benefits outweigh the risks.
Yeah. Obviously, I don't think I need to make this disclaimer, but again, guys, like, we're not doctors. Talk to your doctor. We're just discussing trends in the world right now. One thing I do want to mention, Joe, is that I did watch the rest of the Unwell documentary. And I do want to do an episode on the breast milk for bulking.
And that's a juicy one.
Yo, I have so many thoughts. I also want to do an episode on the water fasting.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Both great topics. Did you watch the bee sting ones?
No, I didn't.
I haven't seen that one either.
I watched the breast milk one and I was like, okay, this is too much. Like, I had to turn it off.
It's pretty weird. And like, yeah, honestly, we're gonna save that for another episode, because I can say so much about it right now. Like,
yeah, no, that's for
pretty
another
weird
time.
Episode.
Okay, Joe, what I guess when I think about off-label uses, especially like in the current world of social media, my mind automatically goes to Ozempic. And I know that this has been like trending. The reason I actually, Joe and I were talking about, upcoming topics and whatever. And when I'm at the gym and I'm kind of doing my warm up on the treadmill or like after my workout or whatever, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I'm finding that this is being talked about a lot. And, there's been this sort of like celebrity uptake in the use of Ozempic. And I think there's a lot of danger that comes with this, because society and people tend to look up to this like celebrity world. I don't know. What do you think, Joe?
Because I haven't heard of it being a trend, but it doesn't surprise me when you say that, because I know people on this. Like, I know people who are taking it for the reason of like weight loss, but I never heard, like, I didn't know like celebrities were like endorsing it and stuff like that. Like,
they say that, now I don't know if this is like the truth or not, but they said that Kim Kardashian used Ozempic to fit into Marilyn Monroe's dress back for like a red carpet event or something. Like, I don't follow this kind of shit, so I don't really know, but someone like Kim Kardashian, like, everybody knows her. And so,
yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people like look up to that family for, many reasons. A lot of people hate them, whatever, keep your opinion to yourself. I don't care. But someone with such like a big following, such an influence in society.
Yeah.
If this information is kind of being like passed around.
Yeah, I feel like that's a really toxic, like, that's in my, like, when you said that, like, she took it to fit into Marilyn Monroe's dress. I think
Yeah.
that's such a great sentence that kind of exploits this toxic culture that we live in. Like, you're taking a drug just so you can fit into a dress, and like kind of like you, I hold no value to like celebrities and whatever. So I don't know like what
Yeah.
the how meaningful it was to fit into Marilyn Monroe's dress, but that seems like a very superficial thing to me. Like you're
Yeah.
taking a drug and it isn't. So for those of you who don't know, that's an anti-diabetic drug. It's in a class that actually isn't used very often. Something like a I can't say it's like semaglutide. Um,
Yep.
and it's pretty much an anti-diabetic. So it's not the worst thing. And like metformin is another class of anti-diabetics that's also used in I don't know if it's specifically used for weight loss, but I know it's used in the prevention of like diabetes. So like usually people who are obese and they're um
Pre-diabetic.
like pre-diabetic, their H1C might be a little elevated. They'll prescribe it just to help manage sugars. Um but yeah, like if it's safe or not, I really don't know. I think like they use it once weekly. I just think that it creates a barrier, Leanne, to accountability and like discipline. Like we're all adults. We live in a society where we hold things on a very superficial like level. So you might want to be healthy and you're looking at Kim Kardashian or any of these other influencers and saying, I want to be healthy and they're using this. Who knows? Maybe Kim Kardashian has shares in this drug, right? Like maybe she's just saying that to make money. Um, but you're willing to inject yourself with something once a week when in really if you're and this might be controversial, but if you're mindful about your eating, if you drink lots of water, and you do exercise weekly too, might
Mhm.
not be as quick, might be a little harder, but we shouldn't be looking for the fast fix for everything. And that's what these
Yeah.
medications used off label, I think it just provides people with, they might still have some of the unhealthy habits that they do day to day, but
Mhm.
nothing changes. They're just adding something into the equation to get the result that they want. And it just, I can't think of the word I want to use, but like helplessness. Like there's
Yeah.
no like control over your life at that point. Like you're reliant on everything.
Yeah, I think you're definitely onto something here, Joe. Like, I think that we've mentioned this in previous episodes too, and especially the essential oils episode. It's like society is looking for a quick fix. And when it comes to weight loss, like nobody ever wants to put the work in. And like you say, diet and exercise is like the golden ticket, but people don't want to do
Hmm.
that. And so
and
I
and
just
not
want
even like
to,
fad diets too, like keto or like
yeah,
Atkins or like meatitarian, like completely vegetarian, like all these random diets, like literally just like a mindful diet, like make sure you're getting your grains. And actually the Canada Food Guide, in my opinion, it's a great resource because it's just like get your grains in, get your proteins in, and they do like a portion on like a plate. So like half of your plate should be veggies and then a quarter carbs and a quarter proteins. And I think
I
that's
don't
just a very
know.
like mindful
I don't
way
know if I feel
of
the same way
thinking.
about the Canada Food Guide. I think we should do an episode on that
Okay.
because I have
Oh, for
mixed
sure.
feelings, and I think that everybody's different. So I think it's like a good resource, but I don't think it's like the
Yeah.
end all be all.
Of course.
Just
Yeah,
to,
yeah. I'd be
yeah,
interested on hearing that, Leanne. Yeah. We'll definitely do
yeah.
an episode on that.
I just want to add to sort of the background and like mechanism of action on Ozempic. So I know that we have some listeners that aren't of the nursing field, but for those who maybe have a bit more nursing knowledge and understand like mechanism of action for drugs, I do have the Ozempic website up in front of me. Guys, I'll admit, like, I've only used Ozempic once for a patient. Like, it's not something that I have high knowledge in. I did have to do research for this episode. But I do want to share sort of, a little bit more background. So, Ozempic works by mimicking a hormone called glycogen like peptide 1. So, essentially, in layman's terms, what this Ozempic injection does is it plays a role in digestion and appetite regulation, and it causes you to feel full so that you eat fewer calories. So the use of Ozempic for diabetes is, that diet it's it helps control the diet aspect, the intake, the binge eating, the high
Mhm.
carbs, the so yeah, it makes you feel fuller faster. And then obviously that produces weight loss. So there's no
Mhm.
insulin in Ozempic. Um, that's I just sort of wanted to clarify how it works. Um, there's
Oh,
there's a
that's
more
really interesting.
scientific side to things, but I won't like bore people with
Yeah.
that. But that's sort of like the
No, I think
layman's
honestly,
general.
I think it's cool, and I just wanna, like, expand on that, like, when she says it's glycogen, so glycogen is a complex version of glucose. Whenever you eat any carb, any starch, it turns into glucose in your body. When we eat too many carbs and starches, which I think all of us do, it converts some of that into glycogen, and glycogen is a more complex stored version of glucose, and that stores as fat. So if, like, I don't really know much about the mechanism, but just off what Leanne said, if it's causing if it links to your glycogen, then it means that you're gonna be using more glucose whenever you intake the food. And I think that's like anti-diabetics, their mechanism is so it kind of facilitates the use of glucose into the muscle, because that's what diabetes is. When you have diabetes, it's either your pancreas isn't producing insulin, or in type 2 diabetes, your insulin isn't sufficient enough for all the glucose in your body, and it can't get all of it into there. So I think that's actually really interesting, Leanne. Like
Yeah,
I'm a huge nerd with that stuff. Like I think
I
it's so cool how the body works.
right, and I think it's important to mention though that so your body's main use of energy, creating energy, is called ATP, and ATP specifically comes from the use of glucose. So the intake of glucose is essential for our movement, for our existence. Like without
Hmm.
glucose, we wouldn't live, essentially. We wouldn't have ATP, we wouldn't have energy, we wouldn't have action potentials. Like if you're a nurse, you kind of know like what I'm getting at here, but it's it's vital to our existence essentially. So I don't know. I just Joe, like I guess like I worry that when people kind of I don't want to say worry, but I
You
have
know,
this like bitter taste in my mouth when people take medication that are not
yeah,
meant for what they're intended for. And I think that
yeah,
more studies just need to be done. And I don't know it. I don't know. I just don't think I
and
would personally do this. And maybe that's just because like I can't separate the ethics side of things and this sort of thing. Like for weight loss, like
mhm.
it's just
I
not
think I
that.
think you
I
you
don't know.
touched on a key component though, Leanne. You said glucose is essential for our living, and it's so funny because diabetes is a very common disease, and that's literally too much glucose. And I think
Hmm.
that's a good representation of, we need this. We need food to survive. Food is energy. Glucose is energy. Our body needs it not only to be awake in the morning and stuff like that, but we need it for our functions inside our body, right? Like we need
Yeah.
like our body is a pretty complex system to keep homeostasis, to keep everything neutral. We need the proper nutrients, but at the same time, if you eat too much of it, it's not a good thing. And we're in this place in society that I believe that we have access to all these great foods and all these unhealthy foods that, like, man, I love Wendy's like
Oh,
more than I should. I'll be the first to admit it. Like I when I come home on contract, Leanne, I'm dummying like 3 baconators a week. Like it's not okay. But the problem with that is too is like we sit all day. Like we don't do anything. So
yeah.
it's I just think it's really cool because you kind of spoke on we need it, but then it's kind of oxymoronic that, you know, diabetes, one of the most common diseases in North America, is due to too much intake of the glucose. And another side of that is our activity levels.
Yeah,
Especially during COVID, like everybody's working at home. No one's doing
right.
anything.
We're just so sedentary now. Um, I think that too much of any what's the saying? Too much of a good thing
Is a bad thing.
is a bad thing or something along the lines. You guys know what I'm getting at here, but like everything in moderation.
Too much
Joe, I'm
Wendy's, you get diarrhea, something like
Ben and I love Wendy's. We
that.
eat out like once, twice a week. Like I'm not going to sit here and say that we have a perfect diet. We absolutely do not. But I still wouldn't put Ozempic I would still wouldn't inject Ozempic to lose weight. Like, I go to the gym. I try to move my body a couple times a week.
Yeah.
My goal is 4 times a week. Like, feasible goals. Um, One thing I want to mention, Joe, I'm on the Ozempic website, and right on the very home page, it says Ozempic is proven to lower blood sugar and A1C. Underneath that, it says Ozempic lowers the risk of major cardiovascular events such as stroke, heart attack, blah, blah, blah. Right underneath that, these are like huge headlines on this website, guys. I'm going to link the website below in the description. So make sure you go and like check this out, get proper information. But it says Ozempic may help you lose some weight. And then directly under that in small writing, Joe, it says Ozempic is not for weight loss. And I just
Hmm.
think that there's this poor marketing that we need to talk about in healthcare,
Yeah.
because how the fuck can you say that, Ozempic may help you lose some weight, but it's not for weight loss? Like, why are you even advertising that?
And
Like,
here's actually something funny, Leanne, is there's another drug. I forget what the name is, but I was looking into Ozempic earlier, and there's another drug. It's literally the same thing, but it is a different um but it's a different brand. But that brand is approved for weight loss,
hmm, interesting.
right? So I don't know like what those like politics play, but
Yeah.
there is a market like industry. Like we talked about the essential oils last episode and how it's multi-level marketing and how a lot of these people are just trying to make a quick buck. It is the same thing in like pharmaceuticals. There is a need for pharmaceuticals, and the pharmaceutical industry, what I will say is that they put so much money into their research. So if you're using a drug for its intended use and it's like prescribed for you and it's prescribed safely, it usually will do what it's meant to do. But people need to realize too that this is another side of the wellness industry in the sense where there's a profit. So like I don't know like brand versus the other brand versus Ozempic, but
Hmm.
I think that's just something to be aware of.
Right. And, the internet is, I don't know. I have basically like you can find support for any viewpoint on the internet. Like when I do a quick Google search here of taking Ozempic without diabetes, you know, several websites say that Ozempic is not a weight loss drug, and then other links that come up say, um, let me just see here. Expected weight loss on Ozempic. People with diabetes struggle to find Ozempic as it soars. Like, we're taking away this medication
Wow.
for people who need it. Um, but like
Yeah.
there's just such conflicting, like, this is why I try to go like to the drug website or to like
Hmm.
proper sources. Like WebMD is not a proper source, guys. you know. So,
Yeah.
and TikTok is not a reliable source. Okay, delete that shit off your phone. It's
Honestly,
just
TikTok and WebMD guys aren't even like
so
Leanne saying
bad.
WebMD isn't a reliable source. Like honestly, it's not a reliable source, but you could find some useful information on it, right?
But how do you know
TikTok
what's
is
right?
isn't even in and that's true. But the point that I'm making is like TikTok isn't even in that realm. Like I
No,
don't know, like these like 16-year-olds like with all these new fads, like I don't know. I actually don't even have TikTok, so I shouldn't be hating so much,
me
but
neither. Me neither.
yeah.
So funny.
Like it just but I think Leanne, I think honestly it's great having you here because you share such an important like aspect of critical thinking and what it is to be a nurse is to find information in safe places and honestly not believe everything you see at face value, and like
Right.
critically think about something like. And I love that you brought up people are using this drug that it says, hey, it's not used for weight loss or it shouldn't be prescribed for weight loss, and they're still using it for that. But now there's actual people who need that drug who aren't getting it, and it's because we want a, a shortcut to life, right? Like
Right.
it's
Because we
not
want to
fair,
look
and
good.
it brings up, yeah, it brings up a real ethical question. Like that's an
Yeah.
ethical conversation right there. Should we
Right.
be using these drugs for kind of like a personal gain and like a shortcut. And I don't want to undermine anyone who struggles with obesity because obesity itself is, there can be mental health involved there as well.
Yeah, for
Sometimes we
sure.
struggle, and just like drugs and alcohol, sometimes we crush with food. I know I for sure do. Um, and there's something to be, assessed there in that sense too, when people, and that's another actually reason why I don't think these drugs are helpful, because it might give you a quick fix, but it doesn't deal with the underlying issue of the
Right.
obesity that you're trying to fix.
Right. And then I totally agree, Joe. Just to go back to like when you see someone like Kim K who's promoting like I don't want to say
Kim
promoting, but
K.
it's been like released through TMZ and like the media that she's used this drug for weight loss. For people who don't know or don't have critical thinking skills or like follow these people closely and really look up to them and their recommendations on skincare and fashion and all this shit, that person might be that person running to the doctor to get a prescription for this. You know what I mean? Like they may not realize the harm that this can do.
Hmm.
Like right on
Yeah.
the Ozempic website, it says that this drug may cause thyroid cancer, thyroid tumors. Like there's
Wow.
I'm not going to sit here and say there's no side effect for any drug. There is, And I'm just saying like I wish people could critically think a little bit more about things that they see on the internet, the things that I could do a Google search that says um Ozempic weight loss and I'm going to find things that support and say that it's okay to take it. But
Hmm.
if I sit here and critically think like I just I really struggle with the way that some of these companies and the internet and TikTok are promoting the use of
Yeah.
these are drugs. Like they're not like this
Hmm.
candy bar off the street,
And
Not to
yeah, and like,
mention,
is Kim K even using the drug? Like that could, like,
right.
is that reliable information, like from TMZ? Like, come on now.
Well, that's what I mean. And then not to mention, Joe, what fucking MD is writing the doctor order to give people this who don't have diabetes? Like,
And yeah, you would be, I say you would be, but I think we'd all be surprised of how often that happens. And another drug that I think of right away, because um, I've personally had experience with this, and I actually challenged a doctor on this. Vyvanse.
yeah.
Vyvanse is used, so Vyvanse is in the realm of ADHD medication. It's similar to Adderall and Ritalin. The difference with Vyvanse is that Vyvanse, um,
Excuse me.
it's I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, Leanne. It's called a pro drug. So whenever you take Vyvanse, it's then you ingest it orally, and then the liver converts it to its active medical ingredient. So you're not actually like, it's kind of like codeine. Like whenever you take codeine, the liver um turns it, like the liver does its thing, and it filters it into morphine, where Vyvanse is the same thing. So what happens is there's a longer life, there's a longer half-life, but it
Hmm.
also leads to like less side effects. So Adderall, you take Adderall, it's processed right away in your body, and you're feeling the jitters or whatever. Um, and it's in the class of stimulant medication. What stimulants do is they activate your sympathetic nervous system, so that's your fight or flight system. And what happens is you don't have an appetite. You don't want to eat. Your heart rate goes up, your blood pressure rises, you're kind of feeling jittery. And what happens is you start losing weight because you're not eating,
Hmm.
essentially. And it also boosts your metabolism because you're in that, sympathetic nervous system. Um, but doctors prescribe it, and I'm not trying to go all controversial on you, but some doctors, they have ties in with Vyvanse. Like they have ties in with these companies. And some people, Leanne, like to kind of answer your question, what doctor would prescribe Ozempic for someone who doesn't have diabetes or even like pre-diabetic? I think there's personal gain. I think that they're tied in,
Yeah, and I think a lot of people don't
personally.
realize that there's like a whole um cash money side to the health industry. I just want to again like go back and talk about like the mechanism of action too for Vyvanse. I have it up in front of me. And Basically, what I found, Joe, is that it can be used for ADHD, but it's also been approved for binge eating treatment in adults. And so, um, it says here that Vyvanse works by slowly increasing the levels of dopamine and norepinephrine in your brain. Norepinephrine is a neurotransmitter that increases alertness and attention. Dopamine is a natural substance that increases pleasure and helps us focus. And so basically, they've been doing these trials on Vyvanse, and they've been, it says, they've been studying in adults moderate to severe binge eating disorder treatment. And so basically, what this is doing is this drug is increasing the reuptake of dopamine, which
Dopamine.
a lot of people who experience binge eating, basically you get that happiness when you're eating food. Let's say, like, let's put this into like
Mm-hmm.
super layman's terms here. You're eating, you feel good, or you're trying to find that feel good. So you keep eating until you reach that feel good moment. Now, what this
Yeah.
drug does is essentially provides you with that feel good moment,
Mm.
within an hour or whatever the uptake is for the drug. But
Yeah.
um
And
and
that's
that
that's
would
that's
decrease,
dangerous.
right, but that would decrease your intake. And so people are seeing
Mm-hmm.
weight loss with the use of Vyvanse, and that's not, for someone who doesn't have this binge eating disorder, you're basically like
Or
tricking
even
your body.
ADHD.
Right, you're
Yeah.
tricking your body in thinking it's full before you've even consumed enough
And
calories or whatever.
the really cool thing about Vyvanse or about dopamine itself is that there's actually been studies that show, people we thought for the longest time we do something exciting and then we get dopamine because it makes us happy. But a lot of research has showed that we actually get dopamine while we're doing something, while we're on like that journey of doing something. So,
Mhm.
for example, like if you go shopping, for example, while you're shopping, you have dopamine because you're trying to find that best deal. Once you buy that best deal, though, your dopamine actually stops. So, if you're
Right.
constantly getting dopamine from Vyvanse, what's going to happen? You're not going to have a desire to do anything. And
I
people think,
think
they take these drugs. Um, and personally, like I can speak from experience because I was actually on Vyvanse for about a year.
Mhm.
After a while, Leanne, like it doesn't make you, because there's this, and I don't know about Adderall and like Ritalin, the whole thing, like you take it and it makes you like work and just
Yeah.
like nonstop.
Mhm.
Personally, like, and I was using Vyvanse for ADHD, but
Mhm.
for me, it didn't make me. I feel like I'm more productive when I wasn't on Vyvanse because I actually wanted to do stuff like Vyvanse chilled me out like very very much so because I'm a pretty hyperactive guy and my
Yeah.
mind's everywhere. So like
Mhm.
when I was on Vyvanse, like I think it did its job, right? Like it worked, but I just didn't have motivation to like do anything, and I think that's kind of the reason why, like just constant dopamine.
Well, yeah, because dopamine is a brain chemical hormone, whatever, that increases your mood and, feelings of like reward and motivation. So if you're getting this dopamine consistently with this drug, then you don't feel those, like, again, layman's terms here, guys, like highs and lows throughout the day of like, without the medication, you've gone to the gym, your dopamine's high, like you feel like you've achieved, you have motivation, you feel good.
Yeah,
Like, I'm just trying to like relate this to like everyday things so that people can understand. But all in all, Joe, like, this medication is not meant for weight loss in people who don't have binge
no,
eating disorder. And not to mention, like, going back to Kim K here, she's not even overweight. Like, why the fuck? You're
I
not
wanted
even
to say that,
obese. You're not even
and
obese.
here's the thing, Leanne. If anyone's seen Kim K, she has a very tiny waist, but she has a huge booty. Okay, like her booty's huge. So if she took Ozempic, it wouldn't make that like that physique, is what I'm saying. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like if we're talking critically, like it would take the glucose out of her butt, like not just her waist. You know what I'm saying?
Right. This is the thing. It's not a targeting drug, and you can't target weight loss, like, you know the Kardashians are known for like Brazilian butt lifts and plastic surgery and filler. And like, I don't want anybody to ever look at these people and think that they were like born this way. They're not. If you look back at pictures of Kim K in like 2004, she didn't look like that, you know? Like,
No.
these are unrealistic. We should do a whole episode on this, Joe, but like, these are unrealistic expectations that we see in society of like people wanting to reach this body type. And like, the fact that body types even go through trends. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen this, but
Oh
a
yeah.
couple of years ago it was like the hourglass figure with like the big butt, and now it's like, the more slender model body styles coming back into style, and
hmm
like
Like
it's
those early
just bullshit.
2000s vibes of like
Yeah.
the super skinny, like early 2000s, it was all about like the crop tops and like
Yeah.
the higher jeans, and super super skinny look. Yeah, and everyone's beautiful, guys, like in their own way. And
This is
that's what's unhelpful with these trends too. Is like, I don't know.
right.
There's not a one size fits all for anyone, and you know what? Like you need to find um what you love in life. You need to find, how, like, if you need. This is how I explained it to someone a long time ago, and I really like this. Is I said, when you're 4 years old or like a kid, you don't look in the mirror and see someone ugly.
Yeah.
That's a thought that's put in your head as you grow up, and you get judged by others.
Right.
Because who would look, like, think about it logically, who would look in the mirror and be like, wow, I'm ugly, like for yourself. And what I'm saying is, those are opinions of others, and usually those opinions aren't even accurate because they're actually based on their own insecurities. And I'm
Mhm.
just saying here, like, everyone is beautiful, and you need to start looking in the mirror and appreciating yourself, and stop looking at, Kim K or Cardi B or, whoever it is on
Right.
online you're looking at, right?
Well, I think, like, first of all, easier said than done, Joe. Like, in the world we live
Oh,
in,
100%.
everything is like, you know, oh, your eyebrows need to be brushed up this month, and like next month, false lashes are not cool. And it's just like,
hmm
it's too
Hey,
much.
I'm
Like,
I'm still waiting for the Gap to come in style. Like, I'm just patiently waiting, Leanne. Like, when's the Gap gonna come in style?
man, that was a thing though back in the day with Kate Moss. Like, I remember this with Kate Moss and Revlon. She had a gap between her two front teeth, and this was like a
She
huge
was a real
trend
one.
over in Britain. And yeah, she's a real one. That's so funny.
I I,
And
I need to go to Britain.
people were getting surgery to look like this, like dental surgery.
No,
Yes, man. I'm not
no,
kidding.
really?
Yes. Yes.
Man, I
Yes.
was
You
born
need to look
naturally
this
like
up.
this.
Look it. You got it going on, man. You were always cool.
Hell yeah.
It's so funny. But the thing is, Joe, is like the gap between your teeth is like a part of you. I don't know how else to explain it. It's
100%.
like it is Joe. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I had a dentist I was in because I had an infection, and she dealt with the infection. She's like, "All right, let's book you in for some braces." And I was like, "Why?" Like, my teeth are straight. I was actually genuinely confused. I was like, "Are my teeth crooked?" And she laughed at me. And she's like, "Yeah, no, your teeth are perfectly straight." And I'm like, "Well, I'm not a dentist, but what other reason would I need like braces?" And
Yeah.
she like bent over. She's like, "Deal with that little gap." And I'm like, "Bitch, this is who I am." Like,
Yeah.
what's wrong with my gap? I was so confused. And yeah, it was just like it is. And this is, and Leanne's so right, it's way easier said than done.
Yeah.
um
For sure.
and like, speaking of the gap, it is something I struggled with when I was a child, like growing up, because kids poke fun at everything, right? Like, kids are
Yeah.
ruthless. But like early, like in my teenage years, like I've learned to, love myself. I'm not saying I don't struggle with it. I think we all struggle, like, a little bit or even a lot with, the way that we look. But like Leanne said, there's fads that come and go, and it's so easy to get caught up on that, on
Yeah.
that train. And I'm not trying to make it sound like, oh, it's so easy, guys. Like, I'm not like one of these like Joe Rogans or these other people on these podcasts being like, you need to do A, B, and C, and you'll be fine. Like, no, like, it's complex. I don't understand what you might be going through. I don't even know what the fuck I'm going through yet. But like, you just hold the wheel, like, stay on track.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I guess to bring it back to like the medication thing, like you don't have to look a certain way, and you shouldn't feel pressure to take these medications to look a certain way. And, I'm not sitting here saying that, I love the way I look either, but, I do put in the effort to work out and move my body and do
Hmm.
things to exercise my mind and, get sunshine and drink water. And,
Yeah.
I'm not saying you guys need to anybody needs to make drastic changes. Just do something that makes you happy, you know? I just
I
think
like
that
the word that you use when you said workout, you use the word movement. Like I think that's such a
yeah,
wholesome word that really like
yeah,
what working out is, guys. Like it's movement. Like instead
just
of saying, "Hey, let's go for a workout," let's go get some movement in.
yeah, let's move our body. Like Joe, there's days where I go to the gym and I get there and I'm like, I just don't feel like lifting weights today. And I walk on the treadmill. And that's okay because I got out of the house. I work a sedentary job. I got out of the house. I went to the gym. I got my ass there and I just walked. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But,
Hmm.
I just see such a problem with taking these medications and chasing this image of I need to look a certain way, and you're never going to truly be happy because you're never going to look like anybody else. Like you are yourself. And so
Yeah.
I just I just can't imagine anybody wanting to put this shit in their body. I don't know. I struggle with the ethical side of this because I'm like, fuck no, I would never.
Hmm. Well, and
you
and it's
know?
and it's ethical too because if you think about it, these companies and these authorizing prescribers are really you like they're taking vulnerable people and they're making a profit off of that. Like they're like, oh, like take this pill and like you'll get these results, and you're not thinking about those other effects that this drug. And people need to take drugs and supplements way more fucking seriously. Like it's a drug for a reason. Like it's supposed to change something that's abnormal in your body so you can produce a normal effect.
Yeah.
That's what it's supposed to do. So if you're taking it and like you don't have it, like that could be like you're disrupting a normal function, really.
It also pisses me off, Joe, that this dentist was like, just like you're saying, was like, "Oh, let's book you in for some braces," just trying to get that next appointment, that next money where she doesn't know how far you've come to work on accepting that part of you, and she's basically just like, that needs to be fixed. Like, fuck
Yeah.
you, you know?
Oh, for real.
That makes me mad. And I've had things like that too. You go to the dentist, the doctor, and whatever, they're just kind of like, "Oh, you should do this or blah blah blah." And I'm like, how about you go fuck yourself?
Hmm.
No thanks. Oh,
Oh
anyway, we're
man.
kind of getting off
And
topic, but
but
I
but
just
Leanne, this is actually that just like kind of made me think of something, and I have a question. We have all heard that you go to the doctor and they say you need to lose weight.
yeah.
And some people get really offended at that. And I was talking with someone, this was like a year or two ago. I was talking with them, and they're like, "Well, the doctor told me I need to lose weight," and I was like, "Okay." And they had got really upset. They were like, "That doctor is just judging me and doing this and doing that." And I just want to say this real quick is like in terms of taking these medications and stuff, that's an ethical question if they want to prescribe that. But a doctor's job is to look at you and see, in my opinion, just not only treat any illness that's going on, but to see how you can stay healthy. And
Mhm.
obesity is correlated to a lot of illness.
Mhm.
And some doctors have better bedside manner than other doctors. Like some doctors will be like very like not sensitive with it, but sometimes we need to accept if your doctor is saying something to you, you need to accept it at a little bit of a face value, and not just go into this whole woke movement of like, wow, like I want to accept my body and I want to, because I do think that there is a little bit of unhealthy when it comes to that too, Leanne, when there's a lot of like this body acceptance. Like you see me, I'm not a light guy, right? But at the same time, I can recognize and say, you know what, I need to drop a few pounds for my health, like
Yeah.
health wise, like I need to drop a few pounds. And that's kind of another side of, I feel like, what we've been targeting today is there's also this unhealthy side of not wanting to listen to a doctor's recommendation.
I agree, Joe. I think that to an extent here, I just want to mention something. I think you're right in the, a doctor, their intention is to sort of guide you to good health. And so, and we're talking about like good doctors here. Let's not talk about the shitty doctor that you've had for
Yeah.
40 years that, you know, doesn't advocate for you. If a doctor is
We're talking about you,
saying,
Becky.
if a doctor's saying you need to lose weight, it may be because you have, you know, a family history of diabetes, these types of things. And so they are trying to guide you in a I don't want to say better direction, but a, a direction in which, you can minimize the potential of developing these diseases. And so I think you're right in saying that, Joe. But I also want to mention that as healthcare professionals, we are educated to use a BMI chart. And I don't agree with the BMI chart. I think, Joe, I
Same
think
here.
it's a good guide. Don't get me wrong. But if you look at someone like you who's 6'2", you are slim. Like I don't think you're overweight in any way, shape, or form,
Mm,
but your BMI might be higher for someone your age because of your height.
yeah.
Or like we went to school with a gal who was really into weightlifting. Okay. And shout out to Shannon if you're listening to this. And she mentioned something in class, and this has kind of always stuck with me. I don't know if she mentioned it in class. I think she did. And we were talking about BMI, and she challenged this because she's like, well, I'm 5'5", but I lift weights. And so she's like, muscle weighs more than fat. And so every time I go to the doctor, they tell me I'm overweight, I'm overweight. But really, like,
Mm.
she's just out here jacked as shit, looking good, working out every day,
Yeah, there's
And
I don't
it's,
know what doctor would look at Shannon even with a high BMI and be like, "You're overweight." Like,
I know.
like
Yeah. And I
that's
just,
crazy.
that's always kind of stuck with me when she said that. And it's true. Like, I don't personally look at myself as overweight, but when I go to the doctor, like they do say like, "Oh, like you're kind of at the high end." And it's like, okay, but I also struggle with thyroid. And like there's things that go behind people's
That's
weight that
true.
you may not realize. And
Ooh, that's such a good point, Leanne.
I will say like COVID was not very kind to me and whatever, it is what it is. But I'm active. I'm
Yeah,
moving my body. I'm doing the best I can. I'm taking my thyroid medication regularly. Like I'm doing all of the things that I need to do. And if that means I don't look like Kate Moss at the end of the day, like I'm not gonna look like her anyway. Like my
I
genetics
I
are
kind of look
short
like
and
Kate
stubby.
Moss.
I always like I always joke with my doctor and say like I was doomed from the beginning because my parents are both like really fucking short and really stubby. And like I'm just like doomed from the start. Like it is what it
Yeah.
is. But anyway,
But
I
we all
just
have those like different body types, and regards to the BMI, I agree. The BMI for a long time has been discounted by many professionals.
yeah.
Um, and what's more accurate actually is your hip to waist ratio. That's an accurate measure because there's correlations between a bigger hip to waist ratio than to like cardiovascular disease. And I'm so sorry, Shannon. I don't mean to like if you ever listen to this, like we're not using you as an example, but to use you as an example, your hip to waist ratio, like that, like your BMI might be higher, but I'm positive her hip to waist ratio is beyond optimal. Like it's probably great, right? And that's
Yeah.
just like like it's just a more. I'm not saying because numbers are just numbers, but you know there's certain things like we know if you have a bigger midsection that you might be more risk for cardiovascular disease, and
Right.
that's just
Yeah.
like what research has showed us. But yeah, like the BMI, I've always been extremely overweight in like the eyes of the BMI,
Right.
but like I
I
just
just
don't think
love
it's
that.
accurate.
No, and I agree. And I just love that Shannon like stood up in class and was like, well, muscle weighs more than fat. And I've always been considered overweight. And like everybody knew her as like the fit girl in school. And
Yeah,
it's so true. Like there's more that plays into just a number. Like we say, like, she works out a lot, lifts weights, like does all these, like, I think she's into like CrossFit now and like all this stuff. And like, you go, girl. Like, I wish I could look like you, but Like I'm over here just trying to manage my thyroid and move my body every day,
Mhm.
It's just like I
I
think
like
that
Ruffles too much.
right, and I think doctors have good intentions behind, the BMI, and I think it's a good tool to use for a baseline, but I also think that just like anything in nursing, there's more that goes into a patient than just a number. And so I think that
Yeah.
we need to look at the overall. And I realize that, you know, a doctor comes in the room and they're kind of like, you got 10 minutes with them and that's that. Well, if you guys feel that you're not getting the care that you need, like find a new doctor. Like, I don't know what to tell you, but like you
Mhm.
have to advocate for yourself, you know?
And Leanne, you brought up such a great point that I don't want to just like let it slip away is you don't know what someone's going through. Like for Leanne used her own example that she has a thyroid disorder that does cause fluctuations in your weight. Someone might have like we don't know what people have. And that's what it's kind of a toxic culture, especially in like the fitness and like personal trainer culture. They just correlate health to oh, if you work out and like AK buy my business from me, right? Like that's what a lot of them correlate health to, and that's what a lot of people must see when they go online. But
Yeah.
we really don't know the physiology of someone, like what's going on inside, but also like again, mental health wise. Like we
Right.
can't just sit here and judge people on what and we don't know anything about them, right? Like that's just a really good thing to keep in mind. I think it was great that you brought that up.
Yeah. And I think that at the end of the day, like that's what's going to set you apart as a nurse is if you can, well, number one, critically think, but also view your patient as a whole. I think it really takes you a long way in practice. And for any students out there, like if you're seeing signs or symptoms of something, like viewing that person as a whole instead of just like a number is really beneficial to the care that you can provide somebody because a number
Hmm.
doesn't provide the mental health side of things. It doesn't
Yeah.
include the psychology side of things. And so,
Hmm.
I think these numbers are all good for baselines, but not everybody lives on a baseline. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I just think that
Preach it,
these are really
girl.
good.
Preach it.
Wow, these are good like takeaways that make set you apart as a nurse, If you're like, well,
Yeah,
his blood sugar's
100%.
not between 4 and 7. Okay, but maybe his normal is 11. You know what I mean? Like maybe he
Mhm.
functions
Yeah,
optimally at 11. Then that's okay,
and
and
another example to that, Leanne, is smoking. Like we love to see people, like especially working at health centers, like you're supposed to bring it up to everyone who smokes. Like, are you interested
oh
in
yeah.
quitting? And if someone says no, some people like try to force it because smoking isn't good for you. But what I've always told people, I've been in situations with people where they're trying to quit smoking and they're super stressed
Yo,
and
me
they
in
don't want to
nursing
smoke around
school.
me because well exactly and people might be there and like well I don't want to smoke because you're a nurse. Have a cigarette if it means that 5-minute cigarette is going to help you calm down. Then maybe today is not the day that you quit if you needed to cope, but hey, let's give you resources and work together and see each other ongoing to maybe eventually cut down on smoking and then eventually quitting, right?
I love that you brought this up because for anyone who doesn't know, I smoked through nursing school. And so I tried to quit obviously for obvious reasons. And
It must have
I
been
tried
brutal
to,
going through those lectures, alien. Like
yo,
they're
man,
like
I
they're
tried
like
to
smoke
quit
is terrible.
like second year. And I remember like having this breakdown to Ben and just being like, I can't do this anymore. Like I I'm trying to quit smoking. I'm trying to do clinicals. I'm trying to do all this schooling. And anyone who's in school knows how overwhelming it can be at times. And, by no means is a nursing program easy. But adding that stress of trying to quit sort of set me overboard. And so Ben and I kind of had a
Mm,
conversation and we were kind of like, well, maybe now is not the time, but in the future. And,
yeah,
I don't smoke now. I have successfully quit, but trying to do that at that time was just a recipe for disaster. Like I couldn't focus. I was so stressed. Like if that's your vice for the time being, get through what you need to get through and then move on. You know what I mean?
yeah, hell yeah. You are such a great example of that, Leanne. Like
Man. And people would
for
look
anyone
down
who's
to me.
smoking and is in like nursing school, like don't try that. Like that's it's not gonna work.
But the thing is, Joe, is like people would look down to me. I got so many like snotty remarks and like you know
Did
me.
you
I don't
really?
Yeah, but I don't give a fuck. Like anybody that knows me, like I don't care. Um yeah, I
I
got
just can't
lots of
see someone, especially like, are you
yeah,
talking about people like in the actual nursing program who said snotty remarks?
yeah, yeah,
What?
yeah,
I just can't. I
and
can't fathom that. I just can't even imagine.
yeah, and I mean that's okay. Like I don't care what anyone thinks, so it didn't make me lose any sleep, but
Yeah.
it's just like I was aware of the fact that it's not healthy, but at the moment, like I couldn't quite give it up. Like you say, like I wasn't ready. And when I waited for that moment to be ready, then I was successful in quitting.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think there's some value to that, you know? Like when a doctor comes to you and they're like, you need to lose weight. Well, that doesn't happen overnight. And neither does quitting smoking or anything. Any type of change
Mm-hmm.
in your lifestyle does not happen overnight. And so I guess like all
Mm-hmm.
this to say, like just have grace with yourself and just take each day as a new day. And some days you will fail. You know, there's days where I don't get to the gym. There's days where I smell a cigarette and I'm like, fuck, that smells good. But I'm not going to start smoking again.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I guess all this to say, guys, like, take your medication for what it's fucking used for.
Hell yeah. Literally straight up mic drop.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, I think that's it for today.
That's it.
Joe, do you have any final remarks?
No, guys. I hope you enjoyed the episode.
Yeah. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to share our podcast on Spotify, Nurses with Attitude. We also have an Instagram, Nurses with
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Attitude. I would like to start a YouTube for people to listen, for those who don't have Spotify. And then Joe
Mm-hmm.
was thinking about maybe recording some shorts, something we'll work on this year.
Yeah.
As always, guys, if you have any episode recommendations, please, please, please message us over Instagram. We are open to any topic, any controversial, you know, I guess topic or trending item that's
Yeah.
cross TikTok. But yeah, we'd be happy to, you know, follow your recommendations. And yeah, I guess we'll see you next week, guys.
Yeah. See you guys. Peace.
Bye.